What is up, everybody? It is your host, Real American Politics, back again with a new Real American Politics weekly brief. And today, we have major things we have to talk about. We have to take a look at 2022, 2021, and the future of elections in the United States of America. And we also have to talk about this possible new executive order, possibly being signed by Trump, that was related to the elections. Alright, we have a lot to talk about, but first, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope everyone's having a phenomenal day. And today we need to just take a look at what is happening across the nation, right? What is happening for 2021 and 2022? And why I'm telling people stop with the things people are saying. So, if you don't know what I'm talking about, right now there's many people that are particularly Republican that are saying, I'm never going to vote again. I am not going to get involved in politics again because Trump lost a rigged election. And I could see where people would say that. This was clearly kind of a rigged election. This was a stolen election from President Trump. And I could see why people would just give up. But people need to realize, it's not Dominion itself. Do I think Dominion software sucks? Absolutely. But most of this fraudulent stuff, activities, whatever you want to call it, came from the people themselves that ran the machines, that ran the adjudication process, not the machines themselves. Now again, there was a forensic audit on the machines at Antrim County, Michigan, and they showed up to say that the machines stunk, alright? But if you read deeper into it, it pretty much said that the machines were manipulated. Not that the machines themselves are designed to be rigged. Just somebody manipulated the machines to screw up, basically. You can read the full forensic audit, right? But you get the point. It isn't the machines themselves. It isn't. It is, in fact, the people that ran the adjudication process, that ran the actual counting of the ballots, the observation of counting, etc. This was, in fact, that was the issue. Not Dominion sending illegal ballots to Germany or something like that. No, it happened here. Do I think that possibly there were servers around the world? Maybe. There was that, someone that testified before the Arizona State Legislature that said that they were receiving weird spikes of internet activity in Germany on election night related to Dominion. So do I think that's realistic? Maybe. But there wasn't a raid. And I don't believe Dominion was itself the reason that this election was rigged. What I believe it came from was, I'm trying to think my words, but it came from the adjudication process. Because you hear, even the Dominion CEO said this, which I don't, by the way, his testimony a couple days ago stunk. But he said that they were adjudicating ballots. Like 99% of all the ballots that were absentee ballots were getting adjudicated. And they did it with no Republican observation. None. Just Democrat observers. Nothing else. So that alone could tell you that this isn't Dominion. Again, I do think Dominion is not a good software. But you get the point that it isn't Dominion itself. That's the issue. Again, I think we need reform to get rid of Dominion. I don't think they should be in elections. I think it should be all counted by hand, and machines shouldn't be involved in elections. But we need to focus on what the core issues are. It's the fact that the adjudication process is a joke. You had these people on the Dominion software themselves that can adjudicate any ballot they want because somebody manipulated the system itself. That came from the forensic audit. That's basically what it said. The title may have said that the machines were designed to be rigged. Well, when you read a little bit deeper, it pretty much says that somebody screwed around with it. Again, I don't like Dominion. But we gotta look at the core problems. And it's, of course, the adjudication process. The county boards for election are useless. It's a joke, right? But enough of Dominion and stuff. We have to go to the real issue of how to solve election security and election reform in the United States. On Twitter, I laid out several paths, all right? And people seem to take it the wrong way that I'm giving up on Trump. I am not giving up on Trump, and I do think something will happen in the next couple of weeks. But all I am saying is that 2021, 2022, 2023, you can force judicial reform, election reform, through multiple paths, right? And in fact, some of the paths, all you have to do is volunteer your time on election night or on county ballots. You don't have to run for office or anything like that. That's one of the paths. I have to explain each path in detail because people think that, oh, well, since we lost a rigged election, they're just going to rig it forever. I don't think so. I do think, though, we need to push for a few things, right? I got a list of things for people have to do if they want to push for more election security, transparency, whatever. So the first thing is this. You can volunteer to be a poll watcher, to be a precinct person, etc. Because remember, elections are done by precinct in the United States of America, not by county. So if you're so worried about election security, I have an idea. Donate your time, all right, on election night, on the election week, etc., on being a poll watcher, being a poll worker, etc. And just volunteer time, because in a lot of these precincts, there's no conservatives or Republican people. A lot of these precincts, it's just Democrats, right? And that's the issue. You don't have any Republicans overseeing the entire process because Republicans just don't seem to care to donate their time. That's not an insult. It just seems what it be. So if you had, like, let's say in each precinct in the United States, right? For example, let's say there's this North Carolina precinct that had 20 people that were on the precinct, all right, working on the precinct. And all 20 of them were Democrats. Well, geez, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen? You have a higher rate of Republican ballots being mishandled on purpose and Democrat ballots being accepted more easily. But if you were to donate your time, all right, and let's say 10 Republicans donate their time for election day, before election day, etc. Yes, the Democrats may still have more people that are observing, that are working, etc. But you got Republican watchers, observers, etc. People actually working on the floor. So it's more even. So you can't just have these people just throw in mysterious ballots out of the blue. And they can't adjudicate the ballots illegally. That alone is huge. Just donate your time at precinct level counting stations, right? Because remember, elections are done by precinct. And if let's say, in every precinct in the United States, 3 Republicans or so donate their time, right? That alone would solve a lot of issues of adjudication of ballots with nobody there. Because you're going to have more Republican observers, there's going to be just more transparency. That alone would solve a lot of the issues. Because you're not going to just have Democrats just writing everything, adjudicating the ballots illegally with no Republican observers. So that's what I'm saying. Donate your time in 2021, 2022, 2023. And you would see a lot of change. You wouldn't see ballots being counted a week prior, right, or a week later to help get Ron DeSantis out of office, which I want to talk about a couple minutes. But you get the point. Donate your time as a poll watcher, poll worker, whatever. That alone would help stop a lot of these mysterious ballots being chucked into the system. And in fact, it would actually probably higher the rejection rate to what it should be. Because there's actually going to be people checking the signatures because there's Republicans aren't volunteering in most of these places. And the ones that are, they're basically 1%. So that's why Republican people need to donate their time just for a couple hours, just on election day, just a couple hours. And you would see a lot of change happen, right? You would see ballots being counted faster. You'd be ballots getting counted more accurately. You wouldn't be seeing shenanigans happen because Republicans would be at the place. So that's the first thing that anybody can do. That is, quite frankly, the easiest thing you could do. Donate your time, and there you go. just donate your time on election night, election day, whatever. You're going to see a lot of change happen. Just that alone, right? So the second thing is a bit harder than volunteering your time, but at the same time, in 3 to 4 states, you could force a lot of change. And what I'm talking about is referendums, initiatives, etc. Because in states of Michigan, Ohio, Arizona, Nevada, you can push for a referendum or initiative, or whatever you want to call it, but I call it a referendum, to force election reform. Fairly easy. You just need, in Arizona, I believe we have like 250,000 signatures. So if you just organize a grassroots movement of people trying to get signatures for a referendum on, let's say, universal voter ID, that would probably pass through the referendum. This is a path that basically I don't see anybody using. And in states that citizens aren't allowed to use referendums in, like let's say Wisconsin, force the state legislators to push for a referendum. In Wisconsin, they just have to do it 2 times, and then it goes on a ballot. That's all you need in Wisconsin. Alright, but Michigan, Arizona, Nevada, you could push for it. And it's quite simple in a lot of states. That's how you get change through the election mechanism, right? This is how people can directly influence policy, by using referendums. People don't seem to like to use referendums. In fact, they barely do them in a lot of states. If you force a referendum through, you're going to make people decide, okay, should we have universal voter ID? Should we pretty much ban absentee ballots a week prior? Stuff like that. Of course, people are going to vote yes on it. I would say around 60-70% of Americans agree with a universal voter ID. Pretty much making mail-in ballots due a week prior. They would support that. I would say 60-70%. But they never try it. And you got these, the ACLU, I believe, in places like Georgia, trying to force referendums through that would pretty much give anybody the access to vote with no restrictions, pretty much. Basically, no checks on who you are, and the Republicans seem to be doing nothing about it. It doesn't seem like Republicans seem to want to do referendums, which is such an easy way to get things done, alright? Now, the issue with this path is you're going to have to donate a lot of time and effort into it, and you need somebody to start a grassroots movement of trying to get signatures, of trying to get people to vote on it. But if just, let's say, 5-10 people start this movement, alright, and they get more people to volunteer, and then they get more people to volunteer, you start an entire movement of forcing election reform through the ballot box, asking the citizens, should there be a universal voter ID? Should there be more blockchain voting, etc.? Alright? Force referendums through that actually get election reform done. Now, the third option is going to be the most costly, but it's probably the easiest. Run for public office. That may seem crazy, but if you want change to happen, alright, run for a local office. It doesn't have to be run for the U.S. Senate or anything like that. Run for something like the state assembly, or the state legislature, county clerk, something like that. A lot of these positions, they may seem low in power, can influence elections pretty much, big time. They can push for election reform, like get on the state assembly, state legislature, local elections. You could push for mass reform. That may seem meaningless to run for a local office, that, it's not a high-profile role. But every single person that gets elected into office that's for universal voter ID, ban on mail-in voting for a week prior to the election, things like that. Every vote matters in the state assembly, in the state legislature, in local offices. It's important. And even if you don't want to run for campaigns, volunteer in them, support them, all of that stuff. There is so many things you can do related to campaigns of just not running. Like, for example, just volunteer for a couple weeks on a campaign. That's for an America First candidate who's for strong voter ID. It's not that complicated. It really isn't. But you need to just get involved more. And that could help big time with solving a lot of these issues we got with this election integrity being a big fat problem, and police and immigration, all of that stuff. It doesn't have to just be election reform. Just run for the local office. It doesn't have to be something big. But you can change the entire system slowly by running for a local office. That's how a party changes. That's how a nation changes. That's why Republicans need to focus heavily on down-ballot races in 2021 and 2022. You change a party from those races, not the other way around. You don't start at the top and work our way down. They tried that with the Tea Party, it blew apart. But with Trumpism, we have someone at the top, we just need to build a foundation for Donald Trump and Trumpism itself. But let's say none of those options work for you. Let's say that, I don't have the time to volunteer or any of that stuff. Okay, the two other things you can do is donate to campaigns, or a real simple one, vote. It's your right to vote for people that promise all of this stuff, of voter ID, of mail-in voting integrity, all that stuff. You just have to vote in a lot of these situations. But there's so many things you can do. I just listed basically two things that aren't the hardest thing and another option that's kind of tedious, but you can do it. Just volunteer, get elected. Again, it doesn't have to be some high-profile office. Anything can help push for election reform. But now, we are off that topic. I explained pretty much 3 to 4 different things you can do to help change the country, for especially election reform. But now we have to discuss 2021 and 2022. What targets should we have to focus on in 2021, 2022, 2023, etc., to rebuild the Republican Party from the establishment neoconservative rhino Republicans base? Very simple. Primary out terrible candidates and support real America First candidates. And now I have a big list of candidates to not go after, right? Candidates that pretty much proved themselves the past couple of weeks on who you do not primary, right? This is the first I'm going to discuss. Who are the candidates you should not primary and you should support and make sure the establishment doesn't screw them over? The first person is Rand Paul. He's probably going to contest the election. Straight up, he's going to contest the election, and really, he's an actual conservative on social issues. There's libertarian things we disagree with on economic issues, but economic policy is really not as big as social policy. Stuff like immigration, abortion, stuff like that. On respective to that, he's perfect. He fights the establishment. He's very socially conservative with a libertarian spin to it. It's a very weird combination. But Rand Paul is someone in 2022 you should support. Do not let the rhinos, don't let the neocons try to throw in some garbage candidate to replace them. That's what it is. That's one of the first candidates you have to support. The second candidate is Ron Johnson. Now, he's kind of an interesting senator, to say the least. People are kind of mad that he's saying that Biden won, but based on his tone of when he said that, I don't think he believes that. And he's the one that's actually holding these hearings for elections. That's big. He's showing everybody, hey, this is what's going on with this nation and what's going on with this election stuff. And that's good. Get that on the forefront. And he's doing that. It's perfect what he's doing. He's holding hearings with many election people. I believe it was Trump's lawyer of Wisconsin was at the hearing a couple days ago. That's big. You get Congress actually doing things. And he's doing it. And plus, on a lot of issues, he's pretty good. All right, economic issues, he's pretty good on free trade. He's anti-free trade, I should say. Pretty good on immigration. He's pretty much probably the best Wisconsin Republican left, because there's really not many of them left. For Wisconsin Republicans, they're either old establishment or they just suck, which is not that big of a difference, but you get the point that Ron Johnson's probably the best Republican in Wisconsin left. So it would be idiotic to primary him. And in fact, you should support him. He's one of the best senators we got left. The third candidate in 2022 you should support is, of course, Kennedy from Louisiana, John Kennedy. Now, he is a big Trump defender. He's one of, I believe, a pretty underrated senator. Like, he's not the best on some issues, but on the fact that he's defending Trump, he's supporting him, he's not backing down, really, is a good sign, right? He even said that he doesn't believe Biden won this election fairly. So, that's one of those senators who, while on some issues you could disagree with him on, he's probably, in that seat, you want to keep him there, because in Louisiana, again, I can't think of pretty much any Republican better than Kennedy down in Louisiana. Like, there's probably some local office that you could probably primary him that's pretty decent, but other than that, I don't want to deal with a rhino taking over, right? That's a big thing. These are the three senators in 2022 you should not primary. You should, in fact, support, because these are the best options we got in these states. Now, some people we should try to primary, right? I would say this. Anybody in the U.S. House that did not sign a letter demanding the Supreme Court to take up that case, that's where you start to list Trump. Then you narrow it down as to, is it an incumbent? Is it a new person? Etc. Is a candidate actually supporting Trump throughout this entire process? Pushing for an audit? Pushing for actual changes to the election reform? Stuff like that. So you got around 150 House seats that you could try to primary, I would say. 150 at least, that's where you start. Really, the closer number is probably around 75 Republicans you should try to primary. People like, can't think of his name, from Illinois. It's probably like, I think it's like Kurkowski, I think his name is. That rhino that's just economically, quote-unquote, conservative, but just useless in general. And those are the candidates you have to primary. Those are the guys you do not want anywhere near the House. You don't. Alright? So the House pretty much primary anybody that doesn't support Trump. That's how fair, clear, and straight how you do it. Now, for the senators, we got a big list, but I want to name the notable ones we should focus on. The first one is, of course, Rob Portman. He is probably the most useless Republican from Ohio. Like, other than Mike DeWayne, he is utterly useless, Rob Portman. And he's a pretty easy person to challenge to try to overthrow him, because even if we somehow have a hard contested fight, Ohio is pretty much a borderline safe Republican state now, where it wouldn't hurt us that much to try primary him. And if you do win that, that's one big rhino name you got out. And really, for Ohio, someone like Jim Jordan would probably be the best option from Ohio. Now, that's kind of a iffy one. I don't think he will run for Senate, but he should. Someone like Jim Jordan from Ohio would probably be the best option. Now, we go down to the state of Georgia. We don't know who's going to win. But I firmly believe Loeffler will win the special election in Georgia. Just mostly because Warnock's such a garbage candidate that this would lead the Republicans to possibly primary her. And my opinion is this. Go with Doug Collins. He is one of the best elected officials from Georgia left. He is one of the biggest supporters of Trump. He's an actual conservative. And he's actually pretty good. He's pretty much the perfect Republican from a state like Georgia. Now, they tried it this time. It didn't work well, but I do think that if Trump would support Doug Collins, which I think he will, if Collins does run again, he would win easily. That's the only reason that Doug Collins didn't win is really Trump didn't really get involved in that Senate race. It was kind of a dumpster fire, but if it was Doug Collins, we would be in a lot better situation in Georgia than we got currently. So I do think Georgia's another seat. We go down to Utah with Mike Lee. He's a traitor. That's flat out what it is. Mike Lee may be the single biggest traitor of the America First movement ever. He betrayed the Republican base. And I warned people, do not trust Mike Lee. There was a reason I didn't like Mike Lee for the entirety of ever. Because I did not trust him, and my gut feeling was correct. It's a joke that people supported him, that people thought he was a real conservative. I knew for a fact he was going to backstab us at one point. Why? Because pretty much every Utah Republican that I can think of, other than Owens, who got elected to office, is spineless, rhino, neoconservatives, woke Republicans. In Utah, we need someone like Burgess Owens to win and run. He needs to run, and he would probably win. He's the only real conservative, real America First candidate in Utah. Get rid of that traitor in the state of Utah. Now, another interesting seat Republicans could go possibly after is Alabama. Now, Richard Shelby is useless. Straight up, Richard Shelby may be the most useless Republican from Alabama. And my opinion is this. Run Mo Brooks from Alabama. Get rid of Richard Shelby. A lot of these rhinos support amnesty. And you don't want them working with Democrats. You need to get rid of them. And someone like Mo Brooks, I believe, would win in a primary against Richard Shelby. Because in Alabama, whichever way Trump tells people to vote, they're going to vote. That's straight up what it is. They're not stupid. That's just flat out what it is. Now, another seat Republicans could go after that's not held by an incumbent is North Carolina. Roy Foster, he said that he's not going to run again. Or Richard Burr, I should say. Sorry. Richard Burr, I should say, pardon me, said he's not going to run. Good. Richard Burr is not running. He's another rhino we have to make sure we don't get another one of. For the Republicans, I do think they need to find someone in North Carolina. I heard people saying Laura Trump, but my issue with Laura Trump is I don't want a Trump dynasty. People may say that's a good idea. Look what happened with Bush. But if Laura Trump is an actual conservative, maybe bend the rules on that one. But as of now, I really don't know who Republicans could run in the state of North Carolina. Now, another seat they can go after is Pennsylvania. Now, thank God Pat Toomey is not running again. Toomey may be the most useless Republican I have ever met. He's straight up just there. He doesn't do anything. I really don't know what he's ever done for Donald Trump or the Republican Party, other than backstab us at the worst possible time. And do it in a way where just right to the last second, I'm going to backstab him. It's a total joke. Now, I'm saying this for a fact. It should be Doug Mastriano. I know I butchered his name, but if you don't know who he is, he's the one that got that hearing started in Pennsylvania, which was big. He was the one that got all these hearings going. So, I think he should run, and he's actually a good candidate. Now, I would also want Lua Belida. I know, I'm terrible with last names, but essentially he was nominated in 2018 for the Republicans in Pennsylvania. He lost, but I do think he would probably be the most conservative person. But I've heard that he's not running, or doesn't plan to run. So, it's kind of an iffy situation of who you would support, but pretty much just make sure Pat Toomey 2.0 doesn't exist. Some other ones I want to name is South Carolina with Tim Scott. Just get rid of him. He's woke. That's just flat out what he is, woke. Down in Florida, get rid of Rubio and run somebody like Matt Gaetz. Could be a good option. But make sure it's not like Ivanka Trump or something like that. Now, I heard that someone like Roger Stone may run. I highly doubt that, but just pretty much don't make it Marco Rubio or Ivanka Trump. If it's someone like Matt Gaetz, we should be fine. But I hope that the Republicans don't pick Marco Rubio or Ivanka Trump, or we are in big fat trouble. I do think it should be Matt Gaetz, and he would probably win easily. Rubio in 2016 won it by around 8, I believe. So, really, Republicans would win that state probably by 3 or 4. That's straight up what it is. And yes, that is all the major candidates the Republicans should focus on in 2022. Now, for the future, pretty much any Republican that doesn't support pretty much heavy immigration restriction, and doesn't support anti-free trade policies, all of that stuff should get primaried and they should not get elected. This is probably the easiest chance to change the Republican Party. Straight up, that's what it is. And anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed Real American Politics weekly brief. Sorry about that. But yes, thank you guys for watching or hearing or whatever you're doing. If you guys did enjoy, hit the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, follow us on Twitter, and yes, God bless you all, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.